terrible WWE matches that nobody ever seems to talk about. Number 1, the Oddities vs Cain Tha at SummerSlam 1998. Before Funaki became SmackDown's number 1 announcer, he had an unfortunate part in this dreadful SummerSlam match. The psychology here was terrible. It doesn't matter that the 4 cruiserweights outnumbered 3 giants. Yeah, they're still freaking giants. David vs Goliath only works when the former is the underdog. But the Oddities was a rather bizarre group in the first place. Kurgan, Golga, and Giant Silver weren't great performers, and the baffling decision to make the cruiserweights the heels meant that they couldn't smoke and mirrors this into a stereotypical big man versus little man match. The heat portion was unbelievable because no one brought into the notion that the cruiserweights had a chance at beating these 3. The comedy within the match didn't help, and the fans didn't take the heels seriously because of it. The match was slow, and the babyface team didn't have a great moveset to fire up the crowd. It also didn't help that this match was fresh off a stupid DQ finish between D'Lo Brown and Val Venis. This isn't the worst match you'll ever see, but it's definitely in the top 50. Number 2, Fabulous Moolah vs Ivory for the WWE Women's Championship at No Mercy 1999. Ivory is an example of a talented female wrestler who was trapped in the wrong era. The WWE Women's Division wasn't in a good place at this time, as Vince and company preferred to feature talents who were better suited as eye candy. That wasn't the case for Fabulous Moolah, however. The former WWE Women's Champion is a pioneer for women's wrestling, and in fact the Fabulous Moolah is the first woman to hold a WWE Women's title. Moolah was an extremely talented performer, even though she had a few controversies under her name. Still, these women could have had an amazing match if Moolah wasn't losing the battle to Father Time. There's no other way to dance around this match, it's just awful. Though this bout was less than 4 minutes, Moolah was out of shape and nowhere near ring ready. The title match was a botch fest, with the most glaring one was the failed dive from Ivory. Even a simple roll-up for the win was hard on the eyes. These 2 ladies helped shape the women's wrestling into what it is today, but this match is something we're sure that both were like written off the history books. Number 3, The Rock vs the British Bulldog at No Mercy 1999. Both the British Bulldog and The Rock are legends. The British Bulldog made his mark in WWE during the 80s and early 90s, excelling in both the tag team and singles division, with his feuds against the Hart Foundation and Shawn Michaels being the most notable. However, the British Bulldog was fired in '92 due to the infamous steroid scandal that rocked the entire company. He was rehired in '94, but the former Intercontinental Champion left the company again in 1997 due to the Montreal Screwjob. Smith went back to WCW and severely injured his back at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view. The Hall of Famer went into a downward spiral following his tag team match, as Smith had become addicted to morphine. Thankfully, the British Bulldog got his substance abuse problems under control and he returned in WWE in 1999. Sadly, he wasn't the same man that competed in his earlier runs with the company, and it was very noticeable in his match against The Rock. Even though the bout was a mere 7 minutes, the match was slow with a couple of rough spots that highlighted just how damaged Smith's body was. There's no doubt that this match would have been something special if it had come years earlier, but unfortunately, it was a forgettable romp that did no favors for the remainder of the British Bulldog's WWE career. He's still a legend that will always be remembered in the history books, even if this match is only good to be on Sunday Night Heat. Number 4, The Big Show vs WWF Hardcore Champion The Big Boss Man at Armageddon 1999. How can we put this nicely? The Big Show had one of the worst title reigns of the Attitude Era. This bizarre feud with Big Boss Man surely didn't help, but now admittedly, the Big Boss Man's antics throughout the build were hilarious. No one can deny that the former Hardcore Champion had charisma, but the Big Boss Man was not seen or treated as a main event star. It was a joke feud that ended with a match that didn't even go 5 minutes. It actually would have worked better if the match was treated like a Lesnar-Cena bout, by the WWE Champion destroying the former Hardcore Champion. That would have been the perfect statement win to put the Big Show over as a dominant force. And instead, we got a boring and clunky bout that felt better suited for television. Big Show and the Big Boss Man are certainly talented performers who had memorable moments in the Attitude Era, but this match really wasn't one of them. Number 5, Lita vs Jazz vs Trish Stratus for the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania 18. Lita, Trish, and Jazz are some of the best performers in the women's division, so naturally when you hear that these 3 fought at WrestleMania, you'll assume that it was an instant classic. Yet it seems that this match disappeared in the minds of fans since it was sandwiched in between Hogan vs Rock and Jericho vs Triple H. Basically, this was a come-down match and it was treated as such. But to be blunt, this was a bad match. It felt extremely rushed, as if these 3 women were told that they had to cram in 100 spots in a matter of 6 minutes. This was also a period when Trish and Lita were still developing between the ropes. That resulted in numerous botches and lack of cohesion. There were times where it seemed like both Lita and Trish were lost, as several transitions were notably awkward. Plus, it didn't build the proper heat necessary for the fans to get invested. It would have been great if they ran this match back a couple of years later, because Trish vs Lita vs Jazz had the potential to be an absolute classic, but unfortunately, it came at the wrong place and at the wrong time. Number 6, Jacqueline vs Chava Guerrero for the Cruiserweight Championship at Judgment Day 2004. Now, this match features 3 things that Vince McMahon hates: the Cruiserweight division, intergender wrestling, and Kerwin White. The Cruiserweight division was in a bad place during this time, and what made this match so bad was how horrible Chava Guerrero comes across. Chava cheating to get the advantage was silly because he was rather dominant in the match before Jacqueline's tame comeback. He was even dominant in their first encounter. Jacqueline only won because she cheated, and the match never built Jacqueline as a worthy champion despite Chava having one arm tied behind his back. Chava didn't walk out as one either. He looked like a chump having to cheat to beat an opponent who got lucky winning the belt in the first place. Now we get it, he was being a heel, but this is supposed to be your top champion of the Cruiserweight division. Either give him a clean win in a vile manner or have Jacqueline prove her worth as a Cruiserweight champion. Jacqueline wasn't built up like China, so her reign always felt transitional. The crowd didn't care because Jacqueline winning the belt came out of the blue, and Chava wasn't a big enough heel for them to get invested into the bout. A terrible match that made the new champion look worse coming out. Number 7, Muhammad Hassan vs Jerry the King Lawler at New Year's Revolution 2005. Remember the best heel WWE ever had? Well, before the infamous SmackDown segment that got Muhammad Hassan fired, the controversial character got his start in December 2004. His first feud was with Jerry the King Lawler and exposed just how green Hassan was. This match was your copy and paste template on how creative and producers book heels. The babyface gets some momentum until the heel locks in the rest holds, and we mean a ton of rest holds. In fact, you can call this match Rest Hold City. The match was a classic distraction to protect the babyface while still giving the heel the win. This was Jerry the King Lawler in 2005. Why did the WWE feel the need to protect their full-time announcer? This should have been a showcase for a talent the company clearly saw as a main event star. Instead, it was sleeping medicine for kids who dared to stay up late to watch the show. I'm sure Muhammad Hassan is a nice guy who didn't shout death to America under his breath. From this match alone, it was clear that Muhammad Hassan needed more time in developmental. Number 8, Mickie James vs Ashley Masaro with Trish Stratus as a special guest referee at the Royal Rumble 2006. Now, Ashley Masaro came across as a likable performer on TV, but she was also the shining example of everything wrong with the Divas surge. The focus of that contest wasn't on wrestling ability, just looks and nothing more. Mickie James was in a high-profile feud with Trish Stratus at the time, and the Mickie-Trish feud is still considered as one of the best women's rivalries in WWE. It's hard to get the image of a psycho Mickie kissing a bloody Trish out of our heads. And Mickie proved in her match against Trish at New Year's Revolution just how great she is. So unfortunately, the bad match came down to how inexperienced Ashley Masaro was. She was slow and performed her spots terribly. Her fans actually started to boo Ashley because her performance was awful. Ashley was still finding her footing between the ropes, so we don't want to be too harsh on the Diva Search winner, but this was the only women's match on a Big 4 pay-per-view. Though Ashley was a likable presence, someone else should have had this spot to produce a quality match. Number 9, The Rock vs John Cena Part 2 WrestleMania 29. This is one of the most high-profile modern matches of its time. However, it's also one of the worst main events of WrestleMania history. Look, we love The Rock, and we also love John Cena. Both are accomplished performers who have plenty of classics under their names, but this just isn't one of them. The first match was average at best, but there could have been an interesting story coming out of it. WWE tried to tell the story that John Cena hadn't been the same since losing to The Rock. On paper, that's actually a great story. In execution though, creative flopped hard with this one. There was no emotional investment in seeing the rematch between The Rock and John Cena because there wasn't a compelling narrative attached to it. Plus, everyone knew John Cena was winning. You didn't even need the dirt sheets to figure that one out. As for the match itself, it's a bland one that relies on rest holds and move spamming. The first portion of the match was forgettable. The intensity that the announcers say that these two had for another one wasn't there, nor was a story within their match to keep you on their toes. It was just two guys fighting and not in an entertaining way. Then there was the finisher spamming. It lessened the drama because Cena and Rock went into superhero mode by not selling finishers that put away top names such as Brock Lesnar, Kurt Angle, and Triple H. Was it the worst match of WrestleMania 29? No, but this is your WrestleMania main event. The lack of story and compelling characters should be vital here. Though Miz and Cena is still the worst WrestleMania event of the past 20 years, Rock and Cena 2 is a strong second. And number 10, The Undertaker vs Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 32. Now, this match seemed to escape plenty of worse lists because of one spot. Somehow that one high spot made everyone forget about the 29 agonizing minutes that came before it. Shane McMahon is a talented performer, and who can forget his classic with Kurt Angle? Even in his match against Vince McMahon and Kane were fun, but this was an early 2000s Shane McMahon. A former European champion has obviously slowed down, and his punches are some of the worst in professional wrestling, but the biggest issue was the story itself. The best Shane McMahon matches are the ones where he's seen as the underdog. This wasn't the case for his bout against Vince, but then again, Father Time was on his side. Taker McMahon was a plodding mess that tried to put Shane McMahon on the same level as the WWE Hall of Famer, thus it was impossible to get invested in this long match. Shane McMahon doing an elbow dive off the top of the cell was a very memorable moment, but it doesn't erase the forgettable action that came before it. But there you have it, folks. Terrible WWE matches that nobody seems to talk about. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.